The sky was dark and filled with fire. Tomo held tight to his seat as the ship shook with loud noise. Sparks flew from the control panel. He looked at the blinking red lights. The ship was going down. Tomo was a young engineer from Earth. He had joined a space transport ship as part of a repair crew. The mission was to carry supplies to a new space station. But something had gone wrong. Very wrong. The ship had hit an unknown field of energy. Engines stopped working. Communication broke. The pilot shouted commands. But nothing worked. In seconds, the ship was falling fast toward a strange green planet below. The crash was hard, loud. Metal broke like paper. Smoke filled the air. But somehow, Tomo survived. He crawled out of the broken ship and fell onto soft ground. His clothes were torn. His arms had small cuts. But he could breathe, and he could move. He stood up slowly. Round him were tall trees, blue leaves, and glowing plants. The sky above was purple. The wind was calm. The place looked peaceful, but strange. Tomo had never seen a planet like this. He checked his gear. His small scanner was still working. It showed no sign of his crew. No signal. No movement. He was alone. He walked carefully. Every step was slow. The ground was soft and wet, small. Animals ran through the bushes. Some looked like rabbits. Others were new to his eyes. They had long tails and glowing eyes, but they did not harm him after some time. He found a clear stream. He drank water and cleaned his face. Then he sat under a tree to rest. He needed to think. He needed a plan. But before he could decide anything, he heard a sound, footsteps, slow and light. Not from any animal. Tomo stood up. He looked around. Then he saw them. A group of tall beings walked out of the trees. They were not human. Their skin was smooth and silver blue. Their eyes were large and green. They wore clothes made of leaves and threads. Each one held a spear, but not in a way that showed attack. They looked at him with calm, curious faces. Tomo raised his hands. He did not want to fight. He showed he had no weapon. One of the beings, a woman with white markings on her forehead, stepped forward. She looked into Tomo's eyes. Then she spoke in a soft voice, but in a language he did not understand. Tomo shook his head. He pointed to himself and said, "Tomo?" Then he pointed to the woman. She seemed to understand. She pointed to herself and said, "Nira." Tomo gave a small smile. Nira looked at the others and spoke a few words. They lowered their spears. The group led him away from the crash site. Tomo followed. He had no choice. But something in their faces told him they meant no harm. They walked through the forest. After some time, they reached a village made of wood, vines, and stone. Houses were shaped like shells. Lights hung from branches. Children played near a pond. Older beings sat by fires. When the group arrived, many looked at Tomo with wide eyes. Some stepped back. Others came closer. Nira said something to an elder. The elder, an old male with long silver hair, walked up to Tomo. He looked serious, but not angry. He placed a hand on Tomo's shoulder. Then he nodded. Tomo was given a small place to rest. It was a hut made of leaves and soft branches. He sat inside, thinking. What now? He was far from Earth, alone on an alien planet. But the tribe had not hurt him. They had given him water, food, and shelter. He needed to find a way to live here, at least until he found a way to contact someone. That night, Tomo looked up at the stars. He thought about home, about his family, about the crew he had lost. Then he looked around the village. Fires burned gently. Songs were sung in soft voices. The people danced with slow steps. There was peace here. A simple life died as Tomo closed his eyes to sleep. He told himself one thing. He would survive. And maybe, just maybe, he would find a new place in this strange world. The next day, Nira stood outside Ravi's workshop once again. She had told herself not to return so soon, but her feet brought her there before her mind could stop them. The door was open. Warm light spilled out onto the street. Inside, she heard the soft hum of a machine and Ravi's calm voice talking to someone. She waited by the wall. pretending to look at a loose wire hanging above the window. A few minutes later, a customer walked out holding a repaired table fan. He smiled and thanked Ravi. Ravi looked outside and saw her. He didn't seem surprised. He gave a small wave and returned to his desk. Nira took a slow breath and walked in. "You're back," Ravi said without turning. His hands were busy fixing a clock with a cracked glass face. "I wanted to say thank you," Nira replied. "You already did. But you're welcome again." She sat on the stool near the workbench. The air inside was full of metal and the soft sound of ticking clocks. The walls were covered with tools and shelves of tiny parts. Wires curled like vines. In one corner, a small radio played gentle music. Nira looked around. "You fix everything?" she asked. "I try. Sometimes things don't want to be fixed." Nira smiled softly. She watched his hands move with care and focus. His fingers were strong but gentle. Every movement had purpose. "Why do you fix broken things?" she asked. Ravi paused for a moment. "They've been useful once. Just because something is broken doesn't mean it is no worth." Nira looked at him. His words stayed with her. A customer entered with a dusty old television. Ravi greeted her and started checking the set. Nira quietly stood and helped pick up some fallen screws. The woman noticed. "Your assistant is quiet," she said kindly. Ravi glanced at Nira and smiled. "She's new, still learning." The woman chuckled and left the set with him. Nira didn't say anything, but she felt something inside her shift again. It wasn't part of the mission. She was not supposed to feel welcome. After the woman left, Ravi handed Nira a small screwdriver. "Want to help?" Nira looked at the tool in her hand. It felt strange. On Solari, she had trained with energy panels and airships, but she had never touched something like this. She nodded and sat down beside him. He showed her how to open the back of the television and clean the dust. He didn't speak much. He only guided with short, simple words. She followed closely, careful not to make mistakes. As the day passed, Nira began to understand the rhythm of his world. People came with problems. Ravi listened. He fixed what he could. Sometimes they brought food as thanks, sometimes just a smile. No one shouted. No one asked for more than they needed. In the evening, Ravi handed her a cup of warm soup. She looked at it and then at him. "I don't need food," she said softly. "I figured," he replied. "But it helps, even if just for comfort." Nira took the cup and held it in her hands. She didn't drink, but the warmth felt nice. Ravi sat across from her on a wooden stool. He leaned back against the wall and looked up at the hanging light bulb above them. "You speak carefully," he said. Like every word must be correct. Nira looked down. She didn't know what to say. "It's not a bad thing," Ravi added. "It just means you think before speaking." "I have to," she said. "Words carry weight." Ravi nodded slowly. Then he stood up and picked something from the shelf. It was a small music box, old and rusty. "This was my mother's," he said. "It stopped working years ago. I never got around to fixing it." "Why not?" Nira asked. "Maybe I didn't want to open it. Some things should stay untouched." He placed the box between them. "Maybe now is a good time." Together, they opened it slowly. Inside were tiny gears and a worn music roll. Nira watched as Ravi turned a small screw. The sound that came out was soft and broken, but it still sang. The tune was simple, light and full of memories. Nira closed her eyes for a second. She had never heard music like this. On Solari, sound was used for signals and commands, but this was different. It was emotion without words. When she opened her eyes, Ravi was watching her. "Where are you really from?" he asked gently. Nira paused. The cloak still worked. Her face still looked human, but something in his eyes told her he knew. "Far away." She said quietly, "I can tell, but I don't want to harm anyone." She added quickly, "I don't think you will." They sat in silence. The music box stopped playing. Outside, the sky turned orange with the setting sun. A breeze moved through the open window. Wind chimes near the door made a soft sound. "Do you always help strangers?" she asked. "Not always. Just those who look like they need a place to rest." And if they're not who they say they are, I wait until they tell me. Nira looked at the tiny gears of the music box. She didn't know why she stayed that long, but she didn't want to leave. Ravi stood and stretched. You can stay until your angle gets better, he said. After that, your choice. Thank you. Nira said. Ravi walked into the back room. Nira looked around once more. The lights, the tools, the quiet energy. Nothing about this place was part of her mission, and yet it was now part of her. That night, she sat in the same chair as before. She didn't record a report. She didn't send a message to Solari. She just listened to the ticking of the wall clocks, the soft sound of a machine running in the corner, and the peace that filled the room. Nira stayed in Ravi's workshop for the next few days. Each morning, he gave her tea, and each night, she sat quietly as he worked on small machines. She didn't speak much, but she listened. Ravi also didn't ask questions. He treated her like a normal person, not a visitor from another world. Sometimes, Nira helped him organize tools. Sometimes, she handed him screws or held parts in place. She learned how to use a few of the tools. Her hands, once trained for advanced alien technology, now worked with wires and old radios. It felt strange, yet peaceful. One evening, a woman brought a small heater. It wasn't working, and winter was coming. Ravi opened the back cover, looked inside, and showed Nira the wires. Can you tell what's wrong? He asked. Nira stared at the wires. Her alien knowledge helped her see the problem. A small connection had burned. She pointed at it. This is broken, she said. Ravi smiled. Correct. You're learning. The woman looked at Nira with a kind smile. You're very quiet, dear. She listens more than she talks, Ravi said. That's a good thing. Nira lowered her eyes and smiled a little. She felt something inside like a light, soft and warm. It wasn't part of her training. It wasn't part of her mission, but it was real. Later that night, after closing the shop, Ravi brought a small box from the back. He placed it on the table and sat across from her. I want to show you something, he said. He opened the box. Inside were small pictures, old, faded, but full of life. Nira picked one up. A younger Ravi stood beside an older man. Both were smiling, their hands covered in oil. My father, Ravi said. He taught me everything I know. Where is he now? Nira asked. He passed away last year. Heart failure. It was sudden. Nira didn't know what to say. On Solari, people didn't keep pictures. Memories were stored in clean data files. But here, each photo held more than just faces. It held stories, feelings, moments that didn't fade. He used to fix radios with me, Ravi continued. Said old things have more soul than new ones. Nira touched another photo. Ravi as a small boy, holding a broken fan and smiling. Do you miss him? She asked. Every day, Ravi said. But fixing things helps. It feels like he's still around. Nira looked at him. He didn't hide his pain. He didn't run from it. He carried it quietly, like a part of himself. She thought about her own people. On Solari, emotions were hidden. Pain was treated like a disease. But here, Ravi let it live beside him. Not loud, not heavy, just there, suddenly. Her communicator beeped in her coat pocket. She stood up quickly and stepped outside. Ravi didn't follow. She walked behind the workshop, away from the lights. She pressed the small device behind her ear. A quiet voice spoke. Nira, this is Olda. We have not received your reports. Explain the delay. Nira closed her eyes. I'm still observing, she replied. You were assigned to collect emotional data, not disappear. I have found something important, she said. There was silence. Then the voice returned. Do not let emotions cloud your duty. Humans are complex. They confuse the mind. I understand, Nira replied. Sinful data within 2 days, Olda said. No more delays. The line went silent. Nira stood in the cold for a long moment. She looked up at the stars. Somewhere far above, her home planet waited. But it no longer felt like home. She returned inside. Ravi was still sitting, now holding a small wooden bird. He didn't ask where she had gone. You okay? He asked. Nira nodded. He gave her the wooden bird. It's not perfect, he said. But I made it when I was young. My father said if I ever feel lost, I should hold this and remember what matters. Nira turned the bird slowly in her hands. It was simple, but it felt real. Just like everything else in this place. The next day, Mira came to visit. She was Ravi's old friend. She worked at a library nearby and often brought him books or broken devices to fix. Mira looked at Nira with curious eyes. "Who's your guest?" she asked. "She's just staying for a while," Ravi replied. Mira smiled politely but didn't look convinced. Later, when Nira was arranging small screws in a box, Mira whispered to Ravi, "She's not from here, is she?" Ravi looked at Mira, then back at Nira. "She's different," he said, "but she's kind." "Kind isn't the same as safe," Mira replied. "She's not a threat." Mira didn't argue. She looked at Nira again, then gave a small nod. "Be careful," she said softly. That night, Nira stood near the window and looked at the street. Lights glowed gently. A child rode a small bike. Two friends laughed near the corner tea stall. This world was full of simple things, and somehow, those things made it feel whole. She turned to Ravi. "Why do you trust people so easily?" she asked. "I don't," he said, "but I trust what I feel. That's usually enough." Nira wanted to tell him the truth, that she wasn't human, that her real form looked nothing like the one he saw, that her mission was not just to visit but to report. But she stayed quiet. She walked to the shelf and picked up the music box they had fixed. She turned the key. The soft tune played again. This time, she didn't close her eyes. She looked at Ravi and said, "Your world is noisy, but it's beautiful." Ravi smiled. "It grows on you." Nira smiled too. Her heart felt heavy and light at the same time. The lie she had brought with her was still there, but it was beginning to fade. Like smoke and sunlight. She didn't know what the next day would bring. But she knew one thing clearly now. She wanted to stay. The sky turned dark earlier than usual that day. Heavy clouds covered the city, and the air felt cold. A storm was coming. The wind pushed dry leaves across the road, and people began closing shops and rushing home. Ravi looked up at the sky from the doorway of his workshop. "It's going to be a strong one," he said. Nira stood beside him, her cloak tightly wrapped. She watched the clouds, her alien senses picking up the pressure change in the air. "You've seen storms like this before?" Ravi asked. Nira gave a small nod. "Not here, but I understand them." Ravi began pulling things inside. He moved the tools, locked the windows, and tied down the power cables that ran along the roof. Nira helped without speaking. She knew what storms could do, not just to buildings, but to hearts. Soon the rain began. At first, it was soft, like tiny taps on the window. Then it became heavy, loud, and wild. Thunder followed, shaking the air. The lights flickered in the workshop. Mira arrived, soaked and breathless. "I came to check on you both," she said, dropping her wet shawl near the door. "This one's worse than the last." Ravi handed her a towel. "We're fine. We've locked everything." The power went out suddenly. Everything turned quiet, except the sound of rain hitting the roof. Ravi lit a small lamp. The soft yellow light filled the room. Nira sat near the window, watching water run down the glass like rivers. Mira stood nearby, looking at her carefully. "Ravi," Mira said quietly, "we need to talk." He looked at her. "Now?" She nodded. "It's important." They stepped into the back room. Nira didn't move. She didn't try to listen, but her ears caught pieces of the whispering. "She's not normal," Mira said. "You know that." "I do," Ravi answered. "Then why are you acting like it doesn't matter?" "Because she hasn't done anything wrong." "Yet," Mira added. Silence followed. Then Ravi's voice again, calm and sure. "She's kind. She's quiet. She helps. I don't need to know more right now." Mira didn't speak again for a while. Then she walked back into the room. She sat beside Nira. "You care about him," she said softly. Nira looked at her with wide eyes. "I see it in your eyes," Mira continued. "You're not from here, are you?" Nira lowered her gaze. She didn't answer. "I won't stop you from being here," Mira said. "But please, don't break his heart." He has already lost enough. The words stayed in the air even after Mira left later that night. The storm grew louder. Trees bent in the wind, roads flooded, streetlights went dark one by one. But inside the workshop, there was still light. There was still peace. Ravi sat near the table, holding a small radio. "This storm will pass," he said. "They always do." Nira looked at him. "You always speak with hope. It's the only thing that keeps us standing." She walked to the table and sat across from him. "You know I'm not from this place," she said quietly. Ravi nodded. "I know. You're not afraid." "No," he said. "Why not?" Ravi smiled. "Because you helped fix a broken heater last week. Because you stayed to help when you could have left. Because you listened more than most people I know. That's enough for me." Nira's heart felt like it was rising and falling at the same time. "I don't want to hurt anyone," she said. "I know," Ravi replied. The thunder roared again. A loud crash came from outside. A tree had fallen on the street. Wires snapped. Sparks flew in the distance. Ravi grabbed his coat and flashlight. "I need to check the lines. If more power goes out, the nearby houses will freeze." "I'll come with you," Nira said. "You should stay inside." "I'm not made of glass," she replied. Ravi smiled and opened the door. They stepped into the rain together. The street was full of water. Broken branches floated down the road. The wind pulled at their clothes, but they kept walking. They reached the fallen tree. A power pole nearby leaned to one side, its wires dancing in the wind. Ravi knelt beside the base. "It's not broken, just loose. I can tie it for now." Nira looked around. No one was on the street. The storm had chased everyone indoors. She looked at the wires. She could see energy moving through them. Her alien vision allowed her to understand their flow. One wrong move, and Ravi could get hurt. "Let me do it," she said. "No, it's too risky. I can see the charge. You can't. Please, let me." Ravi paused. Then he nodded. Nira reached into her pocket and pulled out a small tool. It wasn't from Earth. It was from Solari. She used it quickly and carefully. The tool hummed softly, and the wires stopped moving. The pole stood straight again. The light in the nearest house came back. Ravi stared at the tool. He had never seen anything like it. "You're really not from here," he said. Nira looked at him. No, he didn't ask more. He just looked at her with calm eyes. "Let's go back," he said. They returned to the workshop. Soaked and tired, Ravi gave her a towel. Nira sat by the lamp, drying her hair. "Thank you," Ravi said. "You saved me. You saved me first," she replied. Ravi laughed a little. They sat in silence, the storm still heavy outside. Nira finally said, "My name is Nira, from Solari. I was sent to observe humans, to learn, to report. I was not supposed to connect." Ravi looked at her. "But you did," he said. "Yes," she replied. Ravi leaned back and smiled. "I'm glad you did." Nira looked at him. Her heart felt strange again. But this time, she didn't push it away. Outside, the storm slowly began to fade. Inside, something new had already started. The sky was clear the next morning. The storm had passed, leaving behind broken branches and puddles on the road. But inside Ravi's workshop, the air felt calm, like nothing had been disturbed. Ravi opened the window to let in the fresh breeze. The smell of wet earth filled the room. Nira stood near the table, her hands wrapped around a warm cup. She had not slept much. Her mind was full. Last night, she had spoken the truth. She had told Ravi who she really was, an observer from another world, a stranger sent to study humans. She expected fear. She expected silence. But Ravi had only said 5 words. "I'm glad you did." Now, Nira looked at him from across the room. He was fixing a broken lamp, humming a quiet tune. "The same as always. You're not surprised?" she asked. "I had my guesses," Ravi replied. "You knew too much about things, and you listened like someone who had never lived here. Still, I lied. You were careful. That's not the same as lying." Nira looked down. "I wasn't just watching people. I was watching emotions. My people believe human feelings are dangerous. Ravi smiled without looking up. They are, but they also make life beautiful. Neera slowly walked to the window. She watched people passing by. A boy splashed water with his feet. A woman smiled while carrying vegetables. A group of friends cleaned the street together. I think your people are wrong, she said. Ravi set the lamp aside. What will you tell them now? I don't know, Neera answered. If I send the truth, they may not believe me. If I send a lie, I won't be at peace. Ravi nodded. Then send the truth. Even if it's hard, Neera looked at him. They may ask me to return. They may say the mission is finished. Do you want to go back? Neera stayed quiet. That night, she stepped outside alone. The stars were bright. She walked to the small hill behind the shop. It was quiet there. She sat on the ground and placed a small device in front of her. It was round, silver, and smooth. She pressed a button. A soft blue light appeared, forming the shape of a face. It was Olda. Her elder from Solari, Neera, the voice said. Your delay has been noted. Explain. I found something, Neera replied. Something different. Speak clearly. I found kindness. I found care. I found people who help without asking for anything. I found feelings that do not destroy. They heal. Olda's face remained still. Did you complete the emotional scan? He asked. No, Neera said. I lived it. There was silence. You were told not to connect. You were warned. I know. But I understand now. Feelings are not danger. They are strength. Humans do not hide from emotion. They grow with it. Olda's voice changed. It was softer now. You sound different. I feel different, Neera said. And I don't want to go back yet. Then stay, Olda replied. But know this, if you stay, your life may not be the same. Again, you may never return as the one who left. I don't want to return as the same, Neera whispered. The blue light faded. The device turned off. Neera sat on the hill a little longer. The wind touched her face gently. She looked up at the stars and smiled. She returned to the workshop. Quietly, Ravi was still awake, reading a book. He looked up as she entered. You talked to them? He asked. Nira nodded. They know everything now, and they said I can stay. But they also said I won't be the same again. Change isn't always bad, Ravi said. She sat across from him. I've seen many things in my life. Space, light, planets, but nothing like this small shop. Nothing like the way people say thank you, or the way you smile even when you're tired. Ravi closed the book. You're welcome to stay as long as you like. Neera smiled. For the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged. Over the next few days, life returned to normal. People visited the shop again. Ravi worked on machines. Neera helped quietly. Mira brought food sometimes and shared stories. She watched Neera closely, but her eyes were softer now. One afternoon, a young boy came in with a broken toy robot. It made clicking sounds and would not move. Ravi opened the back panel and showed it to Neera. Think you can fix this one? He asked. Neera looked at the wires. Her fingers moved gently. She touched one spot and adjusted a small gear. The robot blinked its lights and stood upright. The boy clapped with joy. Neera smiled without thinking. It felt natural now. That evening, Ravi brought out a small box. Inside was a round object made of wood and glass, a compass, he said. It was my father's. He used it when we traveled. He handed it to Neera. Why are you giving this to me? She asked. So you always find your way, Ravi said, no matter where you go. Neera held the compass close. I may be from the stars, she said, but this place feels like home. The wind moved through the trees outside. The sound of the city became distant. The light in the workshop was soft. Nira looked around. This place of wires and tools, laughter, and quiet moments had changed her. She came to observe. But now, she had become part of it. Her report was complete. But her story was just beginning. The days grew colder as winter began to settle over the city. People wore thick clothes. Shops started selling warm snacks, and the smell of roasted peanuts filled the streets. Inside Ravi's small workshop, a soft heater kept the space warm. The windows stayed shut to keep out the wind, but the heart of the place remained open. Nira sat near the back wall, fixing a table fan that no longer turned. She had learned how to use human tools with ease now. Her fingers moved like they had always belonged there. Ravi sat beside her, working on a broken radio. His hands were steady, and his mind was quiet, just like always. But today, Nira's thoughts were not quiet. Her people had sent her one more message from Solari. It was simple, direct, clear. Your time is over. Return to Solari within to Earth. Days, no delay will be accepted. The words sat heavy in her heart. Her mission had ended, but her feelings had not. She had learned more than they had asked. She had not just studied humans, she had lived among them, and she had changed. Now she had to choose. That night, Nira walked up the same small hill behind the workshop. She stood under the stars, holding her return device in one hand, one press, and her ship would come for her. One press, and she would leave everything behind. She looked up at the night sky. Solari was somewhere out there, cold, distant, familiar, but it did not feel like home anymore. The next morning, she sat quietly at the workbench. Ravi noticed the silence but said nothing at first. Then, after some time, he gently asked, "You're thinking about leaving, aren't you?" Nira looked at him. "They've called me back." Ravi didn't speak. He only nodded. "I don't know what to do," she said. "If I go, I lose this life. But if I stay, I may never see my people again." Ravi placed his tools aside. "What does your heart say?" "My heart says stay," she whispered. "But my duty says go." Ravi leaned forward. "I can't tell you what to choose, Nira, but I can tell you this. No one who follows the heart with kindness ever chooses wrong." She looked into his eyes. They were calm, steady, and full of quiet care. Later that day, Mira came to visit. She brought sweets and hot tea. She noticed the quiet between them. "You got the message, didn't you?" she asked Nira. Nira nodded. "I thought so. I saw the look in your eyes." Mira sat down beside her and held her hand. "I didn't trust you at first," she said, "but now I see who you really are. You're not human, but you're not a stranger either. You belong here more than some of us." Nira felt tears rise in her eyes, but she held them back. "Thank you," she said. That evening, Ravi showed Nira an old journal. The pages were full of notes, sketches, and tiny drawings of machines. It had belonged to his father. He used to say, "Fixing things is not about tools. It's about care," Ravi said. He believed everything deserved a second chance. Nira touched one of the pages. "Maybe people do too," she said softly. Ravi closed the book. "The stars are calling you, Nira. But so is this place. The question is, where does your story belong now?" Nira stood up. She walked outside, holding the compass Ravi had given her earlier. She opened it. The needle pointed north, but she didn't care about direction. She cared about meaning. The next morning came slowly. The sky was pale. Cold wind moved through the empty street. Nira stood in front of the workshop with her small bag. Ravi waited beside her. Quiet. She pressed the device. A soft light glowed. Her ship would arrive in 1 hour. They didn't speak for a while. The wind carried dry leaves across their feet. Finally, Nira said, "If I go now, I may never come back. My world doesn't work like this one." "I understand," Ravi said. "But if I stay, I won't be who I was before. Then maybe that's a good thing." Nira looked at him. "You never asked me to stay, because I wanted you to choose." She took one step forward, then stopped. She looked up at the sky, then down at the street, then back at Ravi. "You gave me more than safety," she said. "You gave me peace. You gave me a place where I could feel." Ravi smiled gently. Nira looked at the glowing device in her hand. She turned it over once. Then, with calm hands, she pressed a small button on the side. The glow faded. The ship would not come. "I'm not going," she said. Ravi said nothing. He stepped forward and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Welcome home," he said. Nira smiled. The cold wind touched her face, but she felt warm inside. They walked back into the workshop together, the sound of tools, ticking clocks, and the smell of warm tea welcomed her back for the first time in her life. Nira knew what it meant to choose, and she had chosen with her heart. The workshop door opened to the soft light of morning. Nira stepped out first, wearing a long brown sweater that Mira had gifted her. It was slightly loose, but warm and soft. Her face looked calm. Ravi followed behind, carrying a small toolbox. A new day had started, and with it, a new chapter of Nira's life. She was no longer a visitor from the stars. She was no longer hiding her truth. Now, she was simply a part of this place. The market street had changed over the past weeks. People now smiled at her, and she smiled back. The old fruit seller waved, and Nira waved too. Children who once stayed away now came near, asking questions, laughing, and offering sweets. One small boy named Tanu ran to her with a drawing in his hand. "I made this for you," he said. Holding it up, the paper showed a girl with strange eyes and long hair standing beside a man with tools. Above their heads, he had written, "Best friends." Nira took the drawing carefully. "Thank you," she said, her voice gentle. "You fixed my toy car." Tanu smiled. "So I drew you." Ravi watched this quietly. He could see how much Nira had become a part of this world. Her presence had brought change, not just in machines, but in hearts. Later, back at the workshop, Mira arrived with a bag full of cloth and threads. "We're opening a small shop next door," she said with excitement. "Handmade things. You'll help me, won't you, Nira?" Nira nodded with a bright smile. "I would love to." That afternoon, they cleaned the small room next to Ravi's shop. It was dusty and empty, but Nira touched the walls and said, "This place has good energy." They dusted shelves, swept the floor, and fixed a broken window. Ravi helped with the wiring, while Nira installed small warm lights that glowed like fireflies. In just a few hours, the place felt alive. By evening, the room had turned into a small workshop for crafts. Mira brought in hand-stitched bags, small ornaments, and baskets. Nira placed handmade lamps and even tiny machines that could play soft music. People from the street came to look. Some entered, some smiled through the window, but all were curious. One woman whispered, "That's the girl from the sky," but she said it with respect. The next few days passed like a gentle stream. Nira's new life was filled with small tasks, helping customers, fixing machines, and learning human habits. She learned how to make tea the right way, how to fold paper lanterns, and how to understand feelings without speaking. Ravi noticed how much she laughed now. Her laugh was soft, like the sound of water in a quiet stream. He also noticed how she paused sometimes, looking at the sky, as if remembering where she came from. One night, after closing the shop, Nira and Ravi sat on the rooftop. The sky was clear. Stars blinked above them. "Do you miss your planet?" Ravi asked. Nira took a long breath. "I miss parts of it." The skies were blue and calm. The cities floated in silence, but it felt empty. And here, the world is noisy, messy, and full of surprises. But it feels alive. Ravi smiled. "That's what humans are. Imperfect, but alive." Nira turned to him. "And that's why I stayed. I didn't come here to study anymore. I stayed because I found something I didn't expect." "What's that?" "Love. Not just between two people, but love in how you care, how you work, how you forgive, how you live." Ravi looked at her. The wind moved her hair gently. "You've changed," he said. Nira nodded. "Because of this place, because of you, because of all of it." The stars continued to shine above them. But now, Nira didn't feel like reaching them. She felt home where she sat. As days passed, a letter arrived from Solari again. It was short and simple. "We acknowledge your choice. Earth remains open for peaceful learning. Your mission is now your own." She showed the message to Ravi. "You're free," he said. Nira smiled. "I always was. But now, I know what freedom means." A few months later, the small shop became well known in the town. People called it Starlight Fix because everything inside had a special touch. Children came to hear Nira's stories. Old people came to get their radios fixed. Travelers brought gifts and asked for tiny machines. And in the center of it all stood a girl from the stars, now fully part of Earth. One evening, as rain fell softly outside, Mira lit a small lantern. Mira stood beside her, holding a folded paper. Bird, she had learned the art of origami just last week. Make a wish, Mira said. Mira looked at the bird and whispered something. She didn't say it out loud, but her heart knew. Thank you, Earth. Thank you, humans. You've captured my heart forever. And somewhere, deep in the sky, the stars continued to glow. But Mira no longer looked up to find home. She had already found it.